Hello, 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 beautiful people, and welcome back to another episode of the USL Show. We are back after a break, but it was just because the USL is here with the playoffs, and it is not going to stop at least for another month. And after that, it is all Super League all the time. But until we get to those wonderful playoff matchups that we will discuss, 1 versus 8s, two versus 7s, 6 versus 3s, and 4 versus 5s, all of them, League One, Championship, the whole thing. I gotta know, Phil, man, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm excited for this exhibition portion of the USL season that I assume teams elect to continue playing at this point, and it's just sort of like for practice for next year. So yeah, good on the teams that are participating. I hope they all have fun.
Ryan?
Yeah, I'm doing well. We're into the really exciting portion of the kind of conclusion to the year, and it's hard to believe it's already gotten to November, or at least starting this weekend.
Gross. John, how you doing?
Doing well. This is the week of the year where I realized I'm writing 5 articles and doing 4 podcasts this week just because it's playoff time, baby. Like, I'm excited. It's busy. Cannot wait for Friday.
So stoked. I'm already tired for you. I'm tired for me. I am just so ready to get into this. But part of the reason we are able to do what we do is because of our wonderful, beautiful patrons. Mad Cat Peel, Timothy Meadows, Andrew Towsley, Olive the Hedgehog, Kunal Patel, MOS, NF Reg 30, Tim Knox, Rian Lacara, Stephen Howard, Jeremy Churchman, Alberto Aguilar, Noah Telford, Michael Fuchs, Joshua Duder, John Fuller, Christopher Cohn, Aaron J., Frank Anthony, John Hunt, and Harry Austin. If the list gets much longer, I'm going to just create a button that just has me reading that the entire time because I'm starting to get out of breath. And please keep supporting us because you really do make this train, this engine keep on going. We seriously cannot do this without you.
Train reference?
What?
Taylor, come on. I'm not in enough pain.
No trains, no hammers, none of it. None of it today.
Let me just explain how this is going to work. We essentially have a PowerPoint that kind of put together it's going to go 1 versus 8 of the West, the East and West, and then of League One. And then it's going to go 2 to 7, 3 to 6, 4 to 5, again, every single matchup. The way that my brain works, because I'm dumb, I want to know your team's best 5. If you were to make a 5-a-side of each team, who would have the better team? Because most of the time, these games are coming down to your 5 superstars. One in the goal, 1 at the back line, maybe 2 in the back line, 1 to 2 in the midfield, 1 to 2 in the forward. That's how these games are sorted. And if they're still even, we can talk about those extra pieces. It's going to make a lot of sense when we get into it, but just kind of let you see what's going on at the front.
And if you're not on board, sometimes Kaylor just has things and we're all here for it, and it's going to make sense in practice. Trust the process.
It gets there. But if you are a visual learner, it's going to be on the screen. And we have, again, preview show. Let's talk about the preseason, though, because the fans, you all people, said this is the order how I was going to finish. In the Eastern Conference, you said it was going to be in this order: Lou City, Tampa Bay Rowdies, Charleston Battery, Pittsburgh Riverhounds, Rhode Island FC, Birmingham Legion, Indy 11, Detroit City FC, North Carolina, Hartford Athletic, Loudoun United, and the Miami FC. In the West, it was going to finish in this order: Sacramento, Phoenix, San Antonio, Orange County, New Mexico, El Paso, Memphis, Tulsa, Colorado Springs, Oakland, Las Vegas, and Monterey Bay. And I do believe that Ryan has the total of how many of the fans got these correct.
Yep. So in the Eastern Conference, we got 5 teams correct, spot on in their prediction, and that was Louisville, Rhode Island, then the bottom trio of Hartford, Loudoun, and Miami. In the Western Conference, we got 0 teams correct in their exact spot because El Paso managed to finish bottom instead of Monterey Bay.
What I want to say about the fan predictions. Yes, it seems like it was bad in the West, but that's 5 out of 8 playoff teams, correct? Like, that's not terrible. And when these predictions happened, Las Vegas probably had signed like 1 player at that point. So, like, pat yourself on the back to a certain degree. That's 7 out of 8 playoff teams in the East and decent in the West.
The big one that I think is a really big vindication is Rhode Island spot on as number 5, especially when they had their somewhat rocky start to the beginning of the year with their numerous draws, which ended up being a record-setting number of draws for a season. And to have them being picked to number 5 in Eastern Conference is just massively impressive.
Yeah. Phil, anything on this?
I was just going to say, like, I know I put this on Twitter and everything, but if you stare at the Western Conference table for too long, you actually get sucked into a computer simulation. Like, it is just simply not real. Like, the team top of the division has a +2 goal difference. A team in 6th has a -20. Like, there is simply no rhyme or reason to the West. It just does not make sense. And, all that being said, the matchups it's produced in the playoffs are chaotic, to say the least.
Well, let's get over to League One before we go too far. The fans voted in this order: Lexington, Union Omaha, Charlotte Independence, Ford Madison, Northern Colorado Hellstorm, Chattanooga Red Wolves, Greenville Triumph, One Knox, Richmond Kickers, South Georgia Tormenta, Spokane Velocity, and Central Valley Fuego. Ryan, how many did they get right in that?
That was 2 teams correct out of the league, and that was Tormenta in 10th and Fuego in 12th.
I would say, I want to throw this out there. I went back and checked. There was one human who put Lexington in last, and I want you to talk your trash, King. I really want you to come out here because good for you.
It is. Is it one of us? Are you just putting out the invite?
I'm putting out the invite. It was not one of us. It was
Granted,
someone who
Kaylor,
listened.
I know we've mentioned it a million times, but you and I, when we did our preview show, we're down on Lexington. Like, we both said they might not make the playoffs, so we can claim that credit.
I can claim it, but I didn't have the guts to put them last like that one person did. Whoever you are, speak up.
They didn't finish last, but like, kudos to that guy.
Lexington and El Paso. Lexington and El Paso with the name recognition catfish this year.
Look at us. Who would have thought?
Birmingham was also listed to go 6th last week, or in the last slide as well. So, hey, it's fine. I think that in general, despite only 2 correct, I feel like other than Lexington and Chattanooga, the fans got this one spot on, and the Spokane. Sorry, Lexington, Chattanooga, Spokane. Other than that, this is bang on. So,
yeah, kudos.
All right,
the folks knew.
Let's get into the playoffs. Let's get into this. We are starting off with the 1 versus 8s. So, on the screen, if you enjoy seeing stuff on the screen, we have our 1 versus 8s, where we have Louisville versus North Carolina and New Mexico United versus Phoenix Rising. Louisville won their season series versus North Carolina 2-0, essentially 2 wins, 0 losses. With a +3 goal differential. The first game was a 2-1 win for Louisville City. The second game was the one, I'm sure you all remember, it was the 6-4 chaos of whatever that was. And out in the West, you had New Mexico and Phoenix tying this series. 1 win, 1 loss each. The first game was 1-0 to New Mexico United. The second game was 2-1 to Phoenix Rising. In our best 5, essentially your 5-a-side, and I tried to pick a goalkeeper, a center back, either a midfielder or a fullback, and then a forward or 2. For Louisville, you have Damian Loss, Arturo Ordonez, Taylor Davila, Elijah Winder, Wilson Harris. And then for North Carolina, you have Jake McGuire, Paco Craig, Ezra Armstrong, Colin Martin, Alex Anderson. And then for New Mexico United, you have Alex Tambakis, Taylor Maples, Zico Bailey, Akale, and Greg Hurst. And then you have Rocco Rios Novo, Pape Boyd, Emil Quaisho, for Mela, and Remy Crabal. There's a lot of names I just threw out at you. What do you guys make of this? Let's start with Lou City versus North Carolina in the East.
I mean, I think whoever came up against Louisville City was going to be at a disadvantage no matter what. There's no denying that this is the best team in the USL right now. You can argue in terms of form, but on the record over the course of the season, and especially when they're playing at Lynn Family Stadium, they're such an imposing task for anybody to come up against. Like, they've won 16 of the 17 games at home in the regular season. They have this system that is so well put together, controls games and tilts the pitch. For North Carolina coming up against Lou City, there's not really a strong approach you can make that fits in with your identity. If you're North Carolina, you're a team that likes to press forward. You want to hold that high back line. You're often trying to get out on the counter with Olex Anderson. Do you trust that that's possible against Arturo Ordonez and Sean Toach? Maybe not. For Lou City going at that back line, however, like the way you overwhelm the right side with Aiden McFadden pushing up, you know you're going to get that and really force Ezra Armstrong to sit deep matchup-wise. It just feels like, yes, Lou City would have won no matter what, but this particular matchup feels advantageous for them.
Yeah, I think the way Lou City they have an advantage in basically every area of the pitch, but the two key ones are on the wings and the way that they are able to move teams around, as John is saying, and the press resistance of this midfield with Taylor Davila and Elijah Winder just makes it like doubly, triply, quadruply more difficult for North Carolina to unsettle them in the way that they'd want to. So yeah, I mean, this is just a very, very tall task for North Carolina. That being said, like, of the teams in the playoffs, North Carolina is one of the better, like, end of season form teams. Like, they weren't great down the stretch, but they were above average. So I mean, it's playoff time, like anything can happen, but Lou City are definitely heavy favorites for this one.
Yeah, and John, you mentioned Louisville just being so dominant at home this season. You have to go back to 2020 to find the last time a road team went into Louisville during the playoffs and won, and that was when Tampa Bay won during the COVID-shortened season in the Eastern Conference Final. I mean, it's become a meme within USL, of course, but death taxes Louisville in the Eastern Conference Final is said repeatedly for a reason. To at least give North Carolina FC some credit, they had that high-scoring game against Louisville earlier this year, and Louisville have been conceding goals at home as of late. You have to go back to September. Outside of Miami FC and Loudoun, you have to really go back previously in the season. I'm trying to go May 11th against Orange County was the last time they shut out a playoff team at home this year. So there is a chance that they are going to concede goals in this match. But yeah, Louisville against pretty much any team they would have faced in this 1v8 seed is tough to pick against.
I'm just going to jump in for a half second. I think there's only one playoff matchup both in the championship and in League One that I think is a surefire slam dunk. I feel very confident in the winner, like near 90% confidence. And it's not in this 1-versus-8 matchup for either one of them. When you look at defensively what North Carolina does, I think they could stifle a Lou City team a little bit for the first 90. If you can hold Lou City to a goal, Alex Anderson, he's a guy that can get you a goal. Colin Martin manufactures these chances for you. I think that you could easily see this go 1-1 into extra time, possibly even to penalties. And I think of all the teams for Lou City to come up against, I think North Carolina is one of the worst ones they could have drawn.
It is an interesting proposition. Like, if I'm Lou City looking at this, I'd rather have North Carolina than Pittsburgh, perhaps. I think Loudoun, the way that they play so positively and try to possess the ball, could be a little bit trickier for Danny Cruz and company to come up against. It just feels like there's almost a little bit of shared DNA in the play styles. And if you're trying to go toe to toe with Lou City, you aren't going to beat them. So I think that's kind of where I'm coming from on this.
Well, let's go out west, why don't we? Where in the most recent matchup, Phoenix got the best of New Mexico, but I mean, I think everybody's sort of seen the form table that's been going around at the West. Nobody's in good form. 0 teams are in good form in the West. So how much can you really take of that? What do we think of this 1-8 in a rivalry match of New Mexico versus Phoenix?
Definition of a trap game for New Mexico. And I know this is going to like sound extremely biased, and it is. I think like of these two teams, New Mexico are by far, I mean, just by definition, New Mexico is top of the West. And like I said at the beginning of the show, a +2 goal difference. Like, they didn't storm their way to first or anything like that. I think they definitely benefited from some teams that should have maybe performed a lot better stumbling during the season. That being said, like, Phoenix is actually in, like, again, not good. Nobody's in good form in the West, as you said, Kaylor. But I think like this is, with it being a rivalry, with it being New Mexico kind of maybe stumbling in. I think the one thing that New Mexico has going for it is that Phoenix never really found like their go-to goal scorer all season, and that is the one thing in the playoffs that you feel like you need. That being said, Phoenix maybe didn't even have that last year, and they went all the way and won it with like clutch scoring in the playoffs. So yeah, I just, this feels like if anybody's going against the odds in terms of the 1-8, this does feel like the long odd to lump on, if you will.
I'm just going to be dead serious. Like, I'm picking Phoenix Rising to win this one straight up. I think that New Mexico has had an unbelievable year, but when it comes to playoff time, there are certain ingredients that set teams apart and set them up to make runs. Sometimes it's an elite defense. Do we think that New Mexico has a purely elite defense? Like, they gave up 43 goals. That's about average in the league. There are teams that also have an elite scorer who gets hot, whether it's Ronaldo Damas, whether it's Danny Trejo last year, or I guess Emil Cuejo in extra time last year as well. But like, New Mexico doesn't have that guy who's going to grab the game by the scruff of the neck and do damage when it matters. When they're at their best and they're flowing in that 4-2-3-1, and you get the combination play and you're getting touches in dangerous spaces from Makwele Akale, that's when they look dangerous. But we saw at the beginning of the month, Phoenix Rising knows how to nullify that. They really did a good job of getting Charlie Dennis on the ball in deep areas to help facilitate build last time. I don't necessarily know that New Mexico has a good answer for that. Now, Phoenix is inconsistent, and there's a real scenario where they go and lay an egg. But I think at a minimum, this is going to be a tight game.
I just can't get over New Mexico's form coming into this match. I mean, no wins in 5. Yeah, I know they were bolstered by their early season form within April and May in particular, but any team that goes into the playoffs, you need to be coming into the playoffs on a high, like come roaring into the postseason, and especially from a number 1 seed. When you look at New Mexico's counterpart, number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference in Louisville, it is just so different. I mean, if you look at just the goal differential at +2 as the number 1 seed in the West is honestly like really low for a team of that caliber. There are 4 teams in the playoffs altogether that have a lower goal differential than New Mexico. Phoenix happens to be one of those sides. But yeah, I'd be right there with you that I think Phoenix has a great opportunity here to pull off an upset against New Mexico, especially since the last 2 times Phoenix has gone into New Mexico in the history of the series, they've won.
Really crazy too that New Mexico, Greg Hurst is the only player on the team with double-digit goal contributions, and it's 12 goals, 1 assist. Like, they don't have a single other player with double-digit goals and assists, which just feels like obviously Phoenix is not like in any better shape in that regard, but they have been scoring more reliably of late. So yeah, this is a tough one for New Mexico, I think.
Let's go ahead and go out to League One. Why don't we have our 1 versus 8? Kind of a classic matchup of Union Omaha versus the Richmond Kickers, where Union Omaha typically come out in a 3-4-3, and their 5 impact players of Rashid Nuhu, Blake Malone, Dolabella, Joe Gallardo, and Steven Dos Santos. And then Richmond Kickers, they go with loosely a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-1-4-1, and they have James Snedden in net, not Hara or Shello, who they've had a lot of minutes. The local academy kid likely to get the start. Griffin Garnett, Simon Fitch, Adrian Billhart, and Chandler O'Dwyer being their other impact players. The season series was 1 win and 1 draw to Union Omaha, where they have a +3 goal differential. In game 1, they had a 3-0 win. In the second game, they drew 0-0. What do we got on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think that recent 0-0 kind of informs how how Richmond wants this game to go. That was a match where they went very solid with the double pivot, kind of early into we're putting Dakota Barnathan in the midfield experiment that's turned out to be really good for them. And they were able to really slow the tempo, make that thing physical, and kind of deny the patterns that make Union Omaha so dangerous. I just have a tough time seeing them repeating the trick with Omaha at home, heading into the playoffs when they kind of understand the charge right now. There are just too many weapons in this Omaha team, whether it's Lagaskunga on the dribble, those late runs from Dolabella. They can pick you apart in so many ways. You trust Nuhu and that veteran defense to get the job done. I love the story in Richmond, and I love the youth that they're going with, but probably not their year.
Yeah, I think like the one thing you would lean on, similar to what we just talked about in the championship, is you would lean on the fact that Richmond has had really good form recently, but Union Omaha have won 7 of 8 and are unbeaten in 8. So they're coming in red hot, and to John's point, they just have so many weapons. I mean, right down beneath Dolabella and Steven Dos Santos in terms of goal contributions, you've got, Misael Rodriguez, Kunga, as you mentioned, and Josue Ron Gomez, Joe Gallardo, all with 9 goal contributions on the season. So they've just got like so many options down the bench, and it's just I don't see Richmond standing up as impressive as Richmond's late season run has been to make it in. I think Omaha are the clear favorites here and will win it.
Yeah, this is Richmond's return to the playoffs for the first time since 2022, when they were actually Shield winners. So they are one of the teams that have prevented Omaha from winning 4 consecutive Shields. But I mean, you're looking at Omaha team who's now won their 3rd Shield in 4 seasons. Phil, you bring up a good point within their recent form as well. If you look back in their last 7 games, they've scored multiple goals in 5 of them. The one team to keep them scoreless was that aforementioned 0-0 draw against Richmond. But at home, they're the 2nd best team in USL 1 right now at home. It's really tough to pick against Omaha, and I think they'll advance past Richmond in this one.
I do think that Omaha is going to win this, but this is a good Richmond team. I mean, even if I look at the way my brain works, this 5-a-side, your core 5 against their core 5. I mean, Simon Fitch, Adrian Billhart, Chandler O'Dwyer stacks up decently. Like, they stack up pretty well. James Snedden has been a revelation for Richmond Kickers. I think this is going to be a close match. I think that this is not as easy of a match as other people are going to have in these playoffs. Like a possible 2-7 seed of how I think of these matches coming up. But I think this is going to be close, but I do think Union Omaha is going to take it. Let's go to 2-7. All right. So out in the East, we have Charleston, really cool new kits, by the way, versus Pittsburgh. where Charleston usually come out in a 4-2-3-1, where they have Adam Grinwis, Graham Smith, Aaron Malloy, Juan David Torres, and Nick Marcanic. And then Pittsburgh comes out in a 3-4-3, 5-3-2, where Eric Dick, Golden Glove winner, Nick Marcanic, Golden Boot winner, of course. Osamanu for center back for them, Danny Griffin, who can be a midfield center back, whatever they need him to be, Robbie Mertz and Edward Kizza up top, where Pittsburgh won this series, 1 win and 1 draw. The first one was a 0-0 draw, Lily Ball. And the second one was a 2-0 win for Pittsburgh. On the other side of this, out in the West, we have the Switchbacks of Colorado Spring hosting the Oakland Roots, where the Switchbacks come out in a 4-2-3-1. Christian Herrera and goal, Matt Mahoney at center back, Duke Lacroix at fullback, center back, Zach Zandy at midfield, and Ronaldo Damas up top. The Roots, however, come out in a 4-2-3-1 or in a 3-4-3. It kind of depends, where they have Paul Blanchett back in net, Nabil Hackshaw center back, Camden Riley at center back or midfield wherever they need, Guillermo Diaz at midfield, and Johnny Rodriguez up top. In the series, the Colorado Switchbacks swept it 2-0 with a +3 goal differential, where the first game Colorado Springs took it 2-0 and the second one 1-0. Let's go out to the East, because this one is fascinating, with a Charleston team who kind of sputtered and this Pittsburgh Riverhounds team who finally looks like a Riverhounds team.
We're talking a lot about form in these discussions, and there's a real argument to make with the way that Pittsburgh has played, frankly, since July, where they've only lost 1 single game. And given the fact that Charleston really took their foot off the pedal in these past couple weeks, that the Riverhounds might come in as a team that's looking to get an upset. Nicholas Murray made that argument in the Rondo newsletter today as well, if you're not reading that. But I think that Charleston has that extra gear in them. I really think that they're going to make a hard charge at the title overall. Within this game in particular, it's the way that Juan David Torres is able to drop deep, carve out touches for himself, no matter the area of the pitch, that is really going to test this Riverhounds defense. You pair that with the way that Marcanic can almost push up like a second striker, the support they get from the fullback spots. This is just such a complete Charleston team, and one that has pedigree dating back to last year. Like, this is a club that did it. They proved that they can go and win the conference at a bare minimum. I think that they're only going to be stronger this time around. So this will be a tight game. Pittsburgh will make sure that it's going to be a narrow score line, but Charleston is going to get over the line in the end.
I think, like, and I'm sure I'm probably stealing Ryan's thunder here with the season series and the fact that Charleston didn't beat Pittsburgh this year. They drew and lost. Like, with that, as we discussed, I think, like, the fact that this is a really tough one. And the fact that Pittsburgh has made this a tough choice is such a credit to how they've played down the stretch, because, like, a couple months ago, this would be Pittsburgh wouldn't even be in the playoffs. So the fact that they're here is a testament to how well they played down the stretch. I think the one player not in the core 5 that I think has been, like, an absolute game changer for Pittsburgh is Jockeson. Like, they just look so different with him in the team, much more dynamic. It's unlocked Kizza to a certain extent. Like, for whatever reason, the switch has flipped a little bit with him. That being said, like, can you really pick against a guy in Nick Marcanic who set the single season goals record, like, absolutely smashed the single season goals record? This is sort of his, like, moment of, is he going to seize the like, his moment to be whatever. This is the discussion with the Ballon d'Or,
he's in the
right?
spotlight right now. Like, this is where, you do it. Yeah.
Like, either you go win trophies or you're just the guy with the goals record, right? Like, so yeah, I don't think I can in good conscience pick against Marcanic and Charleston. But this is definitely not the matchup that they would have loved to see pop up when they got a second seed, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I will preface this and say that to never really underestimate Bob Lilly. And in the last 2 USL Championship playoffs that we've had since they've gone to an 8-team conference playoff setup, a 2 seed has lost in each of those seasons. So there is at least a history that a matchup upset like this can happen. And when you see a Pittsburgh team who's able to keep Charleston scoreless throughout the season is something really impressive. However, Charleston playing at home alongside Louisville, they're the only team who's lost just 1 game at home all season. I think Pittsburgh is going to make this incredibly difficult for the Battery. Like they said, it's going to be, I think, low scoring, but I still see Charleston advancing.
Kaylor is on mute and trying to talk, I think.
I love that for me. As Alan is getting set up, I have a question about this match. Is this weirdly a coaching legacy game? Because if you're Ben Purman, you have one of the best teams we've seen on paper in a while, with Golden Boots record-setting player, one of the best players ever graced the field in Aaron Malloy, a great back line. If he loses to Bob Lilly, who Bob Lilly has struggled in the playoffs, barring 1 season, like if Pittsburgh loses this match, it was a 2-7, kind of no skin off Lilly's back. But man, if Pittsburgh wins this, is that a monkey off the back for Lilly? And is that going to go against Purman in his coaching resume?
If you're Ben Purman and you're not even 40 years old, there's no such thing as a legacy game, would be my argument. Like, he's got so much goodwill for what happened last year that I think he could lose in the first round 2 years running and still be the man in Charleston. For Lilly, if you pull this off and kind of invert what happened last season, that feels more meaningful. So I think it's nothing but upside for Lilly and kind of no downside going either way.
I want to see Purman in a windbreaker and a baseball cap. I want to cosplay as Bob Lilly.
If Bob Lilly wins, I need to see him do a Jose Mourinho-esque press conference at the end.
If Lilly wins, he's out on the pitch like Mourinho at the San Siro or whatever, like pointing to
Alan, any thoughts on Charleston versus Pittsburgh?
The black and yellow team will win.
The Battery playoff kits look really good.
Yeah, they do.
They do.
I'm their own funeral.
Like, I need to say one thing about this, because like El Paso thought they cooked with the white kits and the sublimated, like all the sublimated designs, and nobody could see them at all. And then like Hummel puts out this playoff kit with Charleston that is just a straight up black kit with an awesome and clear sublimated design that like adds something to the kit. Anyways, ran over.
Hashtag kid season. Check it out.
I'm just sad that none of you guys mentioned the new coach bounce for Phoenix in their matchup against New Mexico. I was very sad that did not get included in
new manager bounce in the playoffs.
Can you talk about the timing of, like, I'm sorry to Diego Gomez, who has gotten just the worst situation in the world. How must he feel going into that locker room? No, everyone knows that they've got a different manager coming in next season. He could go win a title, and he's not getting that job. You don't know who leaked it, but geez, that's awful for him.
Is that Phoenix's plan? Because last time they won the title, they also changed coaches. So
I guess.
Well,
yeah.
It's part of the reason why I picked New Mexico. Spoiler, is because how many of the players? I mean, it has to be in the players' back of their mind of this new coach may not even want me. Like, I may be out of a job at the end of the season. That's hard. That's really hard.
It's wild stuff in Phoenix.
Listen, all I'm saying is that I wouldn't have leaked it. You can trust me. Like, you guys, it's fine. Just tell me. All right. Let's go back to the West, and let's go a mile high. and we are going over to Colorado Springs versus Oakland. We kind of told you the names. How do you guys think this one's going to go? What are your thoughts?
I might be the patron saint of the Switchbacks this year. I really believe in what they're doing. I know it's been a bit up and down at the end of the season, but if you look at some of the games they've lost, it often coincides with the international breaks where they're missing Damas, they're missing Henriquez and McGee and Speedy Williams. When this team is fully at their best 11, I don't think there's a better team in the West, frankly. The way they execute attacking wise and they push Zach Sandy up to really bolster the attacking unit with those late runs. I think the shape of that press and the aggression they get from the back line. Matt Mahoney doesn't get his flowers. He got my vote for Defender of the Year. On the other side, I don't want to be too mean to Oakland, but I mean, they've got a negative 19 goal difference. We got a comment saying, I think Nabil Hackshaw is going to get a red. I don't know necessarily if it's going to be Hackshaw, but there's, not a single team where you think they're just going to lose their heads more than Oakland. If they give up a goal or two early, there's a real chance they collapse. And frankly, I don't think that they have the patterns in possession, the players to really create against the Switchback side. So pretty confidently, I would call it my lock for the round to go Colorado Springs.
Just going to jump in, I guess. I want to believe in Oakland purely because people in Oakland are nice to me. I kind of, there's emotional heartstrings there, but if you have watched the way Colorado Springs has played, also spoiler, James Chambers was my coach of the year vote. I think he has done an incredible job this season. And I think, honestly, like John said, the only thing that's going to stop Colorado Springs in the West is another international break, which I think there might be one mid-November. I might need to check that. I think that Oakland has shown that they can win games, but they haven't done it in nearly 3 months now. And you just cannot rely on that. If the Oakland of mid-June, mid-July comes back, I am here for it. But, that was a summer ago, and we are kind of in fall. It's still 80 degrees, but it's supposed to be fall. It's just been too long for me to rely on that.
Yeah, I know, John, you had said that you want to be at least kind to Oakland on this one, but looking at my ELO ratings, this Oakland Roots team is the worst playoff team this league has seen up until now. Previously, that was 2016 Orlando City B. There are two teams in the West right now, San Antonio and Tulsa, who had a higher ELO rating than this Oakland Roots team had entering the postseason. They truly, I think, are very fortunate to be in a playoff spot at this time. When you look over on the other side, you're looking at a Colorado Springs team who have the second best home record in the West and are my highest rated Western Conference team per my ELO ratings. And I think had we at least had a couple more games, they could have chased down New Mexico for that number one seed. So I would say Colorado Springs is going to be my pick to advance. And if I hadn't locked a game in USL 1, they would be my lock of the championship.
Yeah, no, that I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Ryan, that they just, of the teams in the West, they feel like the one that is actually genuinely in form of any sort. And you mentioned Mahoney, John. I think Duke Lacroix too, just in terms of the level up that he's had this year and his calmness back there, in terms of he just covers a ton of space and he really heads off a lot of what I think Oakland will try to do in this match, which is play the ball into the channels, try to play on the counter. They're going to try to be compact and then really release their wide forwards. Switchbacks are just particularly well set up to deal with that, I think, and sweep that up. And they've shown a number of times this season that they just handle these games really well. To Ryan's point, I just don't think, unfortunately, this Oakland team is too good. And again, it's a one-off. Anything can happen, but Switchbacks are in a really, really strong position. Maybe the strongest position that this franchise has ever been in, to challenge for silverware.
I think the thing that's going for them at home is just the goal differential. One thing that's always stuck with me with Pony talking about the playoffs is like teams that give up more than a goal per game, like usually don't do well in the playoffs or don't go far in the playoffs. And the Switchbacks are in that mold at home. On the road, it's a little bit different story. And so I think Colorado Springs with this one's going to benefit from playing at home where they play, Ryan talked about the second best team in the West, but like, some of those other numbers, 16 goals allowed in 17 games at home, that's pretty darn good. And so I think, Colorado Springs at home is a tough opponent anyway. But, to Phil's point about form and where this team is right now with the pieces they have, I think this is a pretty fun watch. But Oakland's played this game before, right? We were lucky to get in, and all Paul Blanchette has to do is stand on his head and get his penalty kicks. And so Oakland's been in this position before, so don't give up hope, Oakland Roots. But I think this is a different Oakland Roots team and a much different Colorado Springs team.
And real quick, I know we're going to end up going way too long. Like Oakland in those past scenarios has come on strong at the end to make the playoffs. This is a team that like banked up some points over the summer, had a terrible end to the season, and quietly hasn't had a very good year from Blanchette. Like it's not the right mix of factors for them.
Let's go out to League One now, where we stay in Colorado. Why don't we? Where we have Northern Colorado Hellstorm versus Spokane Velocity, another matchup of a team being really, really good and hot, and versus a team who's really, really not. Where Northern Colorado, they typically come out in a 4-2-3-1. They have Lalo Delgado, David Garcia, Patrick Langlois, Bruno Rendon, Ethan Howard. Where we have Spokane Velocity, also in a 4-2-3-1, Brooks Thompson, who has been starting as of late, Marcel Lage, Derek Waldeck, Luis Heel, and Andre Lewis. Although I have a question about Heel. I thought he was hurt for a little bit. I know he's been playing recently, but I don't know if he is 100%. We are in a Jaeger Cup situation. We are going with the goal differential of the league cups, but if you want to take into consideration the Jaeger Cup, if you feel like that's impactful for you, we're going to tell you about it. In game one, Spokane took it 1-0. In game two, Northern Colorado took it 1-0. But in the Jägermeister Cup, Northern Colorado swept it as they won it all, winning both matchups 3-1. How do we see this one shaking out?
I don't want to be, I know it's going to be a theme. I don't want to be mean to Spokane on this one. What they've done in an expansion season in a really tricky League One, and especially considering the unbelievable amount of travel they face, has been nothing but impressive. They've really just kind of lost the plot recently. They trifled with that back three over the course of the summer. They're back into the 4-2-3-1 these days. Waldeck is going to be the key man. You don't know if he's going to be on the wing or at fullback. They've belatedly replaced Josh Dalling with Anwar Pallais up top. Pallais, who almost got 10 goals in the championship last year. But it feels like a lot of bandages on something that just has kind of lost momentum, whether it's because of injuries or players dropping out of form. Northern Colorado, on the other hand, they've proven their mettle in tournaments. They're, an unbelievable offensive team, whether it's the verticality of someone like a Rendon or Real Heel, or a more controlled sort of buildup. When you think about David Garcia distributing, when you think about Jackson Dietrich shifting over to the sideline to play those passes, it just feels like the Hailstorm are so overwhelmingly strong that they are going to take care of business handily here.
Yeah, it's all Hailstorm for me. They've won 5 in a row to end the season. Rendon is performing exceptionally well. Horde, it's like, it just has all of the feeling that Hailstorm had. Like they really didn't miss a beat, I guess, in terms of the post Trevor Amon life, and they recovered quite well from it. They've even still got Noah Powder, who is only 4 years removed from playing in a USL Championship final with Real Monarchs. So there's so much talent on this team, and they're in form. It's impossible to pick against the Hailstorm And yeah, 2 versus 7, a bit of a almost more overwhelming than our 1v8 picks, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, if you say overwhelming, Noko is my lock of the week. You talk about form coming into this match. I mean, 5 in a row is pretty undeniable. They already have the pedigree of winning the Jägermeister Cup. If you look on the other side with Spokane, they enter this match winless in their last 7. And if they had not scored those 2 goals against Greenville, that would be goalless in their last 10 and a half hours. So you could watch the Dark Knight trilogy and the Batman in that time. It's like they're just not in form, and they're honestly very lucky to be just the 7th seed. Like Hailstorm got the easier draw than Omaha did for this round, so I have Northern Colorado in a lock.
Ryan, you're a national treasure, man. That's so good.
I'm not sure I would have pegged Hailstorm as the best home team in USL League One before the season, but based on goal differential, they are, and good for them. I also think it's very nice of Spokane to, in their design of their logo, to tell us how many times they're going to lose to Northern Colorado this season. So that was...
On that note, we're moving on. Let's go to the 3s versus 6. We have Detroit City versus Tampa Bay Rowdies, where Detroit City go with a 4-3-3 or a 3-4-3 with Nate Steinwasser back in net. I'll be interested. He should be starting, but they were kind of doing this back and forth thing for a little while. I don't know. Devin Amu-Mensah, Stephen Carroll, Maxi Rodriguez, Ben Morris, who, if you have not paid attention to what Ben Morris has been doing, this is not the Ben Morris you remember. And then to the Tampa Bay Rowdies at a 3-4-3, Jordan Farr, Jordan Doherty, Lewis Hilton, Cal Jennings, Manuel Arteaga, all names that you know and love. Detroit City took this season matchup 1 win and 1 draw with a +1 goal differential. Game 1 was a 1-1 draw. The game 2 was a 3-2 win for Detroit City. Out in the West, we have Memphis, which I think this may be the first and only matchup, if I remember right, that the reverse fixture has the season series where and we'll talk about it in a second. But Memphis comes out in a 4-2-3-1 with Tyler Derrick in goal, AB Sissoko in center back, Akeem Ward, Bruno Lapa, and Marlon rounding it out for them. Orange County with a 4-4-2, 4-1-4-1 with Colin Shuttler, Marcus Nakeem, Owen Lamb, Kyle Scott, Ethan Zubak as their core 5. But the season series is 2-0-0 to Orange County with a +5 goal differential with a 2-0 win and then a 4-1 win, both going Orange County's way. That is just a massive side, and I think this may be the more interesting conversation as Orange County has the reverse fixture advantage, and they're the only one. So let's start out in the West, why don't we?
Yeah, and we've got a couple good comments in here from DK Jenks over the course of the episode. One, there is a team in the West that is in good form, and it's Orange County. Like, they have consistently got results for about 2 months now to put themselves in this 6th seed. And I think kind of the key reason why you point out one of those key players, Kyle Scott, he's not really involved in the team these days. They've reoriented the midfield with Kasipli and Partita in this double pivot. There's a question about Partita's health going into next week, but they've been so much stronger and a little bit more varied in the way they're building. It's no longer just drop Kyle Scott deep and make him do something. They're getting more players involved. They're hitting Chris Haggart between the lines at his feet. They've still got the threat over the top of Jameson, and that's something that's going to pay off in this Memphis matchup, given some of the disorganization we've seen from 901. But it feels like it's a much more holistic Orange County team. Memphis, I don't really know what to make of them. We've seen some really odd lineup choices down the stretch. We see those results that you rightly pointed out, Kayla. Like, I hadn't really realized that Orange County had taken them to task this year. I came into this thinking Orange County is going to get the upset, but yeah, like, I feel pretty good about that.
This is a matchup where, like, depending on what point in the season we were talking about Memphis or Orange County, I'm either like shocked to see either of them in the playoffs, or like or shocked to, you know, whatever, not see them because they would be locks. I think like Memphis is one where they couldn't buy a goal early in the season. They eventually found a formula that worked, and they got like some really great production out of the likes of Marlon, Samuel, Cariaga, and then they also like. But on the Orange County side, to your point, John, obviously significant shift in Orange County, like in the managerial spot. Big narrative of potential revenge, like Orange County, like if they're able to get any sort of even like a Western Conference final, that would be very interesting given what went down, and who their replacement manager is. So Phoenix Rising, wink, wink. I think the thing for me that is so impressive, I think, about like what Orange County has done is defensively, they've been so strong down the stretch, and it makes it really hard to pick against them, especially against a Memphis team that kind of runs hot and cold in the goal scoring department. They kept, I think the stat is, in their last like 8 games, up until the season finale, and where they let in 2 goals against Hartford, they allowed a single goal across that stretch the entire time. They kept 6 clean sheets. So it's like, that's the sort of thing that just suggests, hey, playoffs, if you keep a clean sheet, odds are you've got a really good shot at winning. So I think Orange County is the smart money in this one.
Yeah, this just Orange County team entering the postseason seems just so reminiscent of their 2021 title year, where they really ended the season on a high. And you'll look back through a lot of the other teams within the league, Colorado Springs, Las Vegas, who had lost 3 games in a row this year. But Orange County had 2 separate occurrences where they lost 3 games in a row this season and still find themselves on an 8-match unbeaten run to enter the postseason. And if you look historically against Memphis, Orange County has never lost to Memphis when they've met each other in USL. And I think Orange County is going to do it again, and they'll get by Memphis here.
Yeah, I think, you look at wins and losses, but, with a goalkeeper like Shuttler, like you don't have to win this game if you're Orange County. You can get to a draw and do a coin flip in PKs, right? Like, and that's what they've been doing on the road, is maybe not winning games, but not losing games. And I think that is just as strong of a case for Orange County in this one. A good goalkeeper makes a team in the playoffs, and just like I think it was Phil, like, right, you don't give up goals, you have a good chance of winning. I like what Orange County's been able to do. They were kind of, it felt like they were very much dead in the water, and all of a sudden they're riding a hot hand, and so you gotta roll with the hot hand right now.
Just a couple of things before we go over to the East. I will fix the Kyle Scott thing before it gets posted later, so thank y'all for letting me know on that. Memphis is, first off, with seeing Akeem Ward, Bruno Lapa, and Marlon all on this list makes me want to puke. I just want to throw that out there as well.
You've got a rooting interest in the playoffs, Kaylor.
I definitely do not. Memphis is the only team that, and I say this, I know there's Louisville City, I do get that, but like Memphis can legitimately score 6 goals on any given night. I'm also fully convinced they'll finish this game with only 9 players on the field. That's just kind of what Memphis does. They get red cards, they score goals, they go home. That's what they do. I wonder if there's going to be a part of Orange County that can just really get Memphis off their game, get them riled up, and force them to make silly mistakes, because throughout the year it has proven to work time after time after time. So that is something to look out for. Let's go out to the East, and we kind of, I guess, go up to the Midwest. I don't know how Detroit City feels about being in the East necessarily. Where we do get the comment, Carlos Saldana in net more than likely. Nate Steinwasser has been getting the starts recently, including getting a PK. That's so cool. But I'd be interested to see if they go back to Saldana after getting several weeks off. Nate is in the flow of games and they've been playing well. So I'll be interested to see what they do in Detroit. But to me, full transparency, this is the one that I think this is the slam dunk. I think this is Detroit City easily.
I mean, I think the counter argument from the Rowdies' perspective is that they've really found their footing in these final 2 games that they played at IMG Academy in Bradenton. It was really the move back to playing Danny Crisostomo next to Lewis Hilton in the pivot that's been a big deal. There have been too many moments where Hilton has been alone and kind of not able to hold down the fort, so giving him a partner has mattered. Starting Leo Fernandez and Cal Jennings, both of whom can really give you something, pick up the ball between the lines while the other's stretching the defense, has been nice. Nick Moon as well. Like, they're coalescing and feel like the Tampa Bay Rowdies team we've been waiting to see. That said, I still think Detroit is going to win this match. What they've been doing in that kind of, you would call it a 3-4-3, but it's kind of this dual number 10 sitting behind Ben Morris shape. That's going to give Tampa Bay so many problems. The Rowdies have been quite weak at the back. I mean, I like Freddie Kleiman a lot, and I think he's a good player in a certain system, but he just doesn't fit between Doherty and Aaron Guillen right now. Detroit, their defense won't give up anything easy. Some of those cherry-picked goals you would hope for from Cal Jennings just aren't going to happen. And Ben Morris is red hot right now. I would take him over maybe every other forward in the East, question mark at this point. Like, I think the guy is unreal. That all leads to a Detroit win.
Yeah, I think you don't have to look much further than what Detroit was able to do to Louisville about a month ago, or a month and a half ago, maybe, when at home they are really able to constrict teams that try to play expansive. They can really like force the game into the pace and tempo that they want it to be played at. And I think that does not bode well for a Rowdies team that has just gotten out of sorts like frequently this season, because when the Rowdies are playing their game, they have 2 of the best goal scorers in the league, bar none, right? Like in Cal Jennings and Manuel Arteaga. And when they're firing, no one can stand up against that. But I don't think they're going to get to play their game in Detroit. And so I think Detroit is going to get through, which again is another team that you can point to and say, I mean, a couple of months ago, maybe even 2-3 months ago, we'd have said Detroit was maybe scraping for a playoff spot, and they've just put themselves in a commanding lead, or in a commanding position to get a home playoff game. And they've been really impressive down the stretch, whereas Rowdies just haven't been quite impressive enough to suggest they can go into Detroit and get it done.
Unfortunately for Cal Jennings, there's just not that many younglings on this Detroit City team to deal with.
What about the women and the children?
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at a Detroit team who's posted 6 shutouts at home this season. Honestly, Keyworth is going to be rocking for their first home playoff game since they've joined USL. And Phil, you mentioned just how impressive their turnaround has been. They had a stretch through the summer where Detroit went 8 matches without a win, and the fact that they're hosting a home playoff game and went into the postseason not having had banked points at the start of the year, but came into the postseason on an absolute tear. It suggests to me that Detroit is honestly a really trendy dark horse pick within the East to make not just the final, but to possibly make the final of the entire league. So I have Detroit winning this one, but Tampa Bay will not make it easy.
I'm surprised we didn't get a movie length for how long it's been since Tampa Bay has gone on the road and gotten a win. I think it's like July. So I wonder how many director's cuts of Lord of the Rings it would take to watch all of those away games before you get to a win, because I'm sure it's at least 2 of them. But I think the interesting thing about Detroit is they're like road records better than their home record, which is wild in comparison to the other teams. So it was quite shocking to see that Detroit was kind of toward the bottom of home records, but with Lou City at the top of that, it's hard to keep that pace. Yeah, I think this is one that's, Detroit City is finally coming into their own as far as where they thought they would be when they moved over. And Tampa Bay, the 2 stars, feels like a Yelp review for their season so far. Maybe not the best. And this seems like weird to pick Detroit here between these 2 games, between these 2 teams, but I think you have to.
This is brutal. Absolutely brutal. All right. We'll go on to the other 3-6, where we have Forward Madison versus Charlotte Independence, where Forward Madison come out in a 3-4-3 where they have Shipman, Krul, Payne, Gelhart, and Cheney as their 5. And then you go out to Charlotte where they have Pack, Spielman, Dimmick, Overton, and Arbregan. Those are our 5, with Charlotte playing in the 4-2-3-1. In the season series, Madison took it 1 win, 1 draw, where in the first game it was a 0-0 draw, and in the second game it was a 4-2 win for Madison. In the Jägermeister, if that matters to you, Madison took both of them at a score of 2-1. How do you see this one shaking out?
Weirdly, I am trusting Charlotte. And by the advanced numbers, this is a team that was below the playoff line, like in terms of XG margin. It's a team that might be missing Austin Pack, given that Matt Levy just got the start in their final game. And yet, I think they're kind of built for the playoffs. Like we saw it last season with a pretty similar group. And even with the losses, like you've still got the emergence of Obregon. You've got an improving Luis Alvarez, where it feels like the Independence team that made the title game last season. Madison's thing is always getting over the hump in these competitions. They lost in the Jägermeister Cup final. They bring a lot to the table. There's a lot to like. I just don't know if they've ever really landed on the attacking identity you want from them. They've got so much talent in that front line, and it's a bit of a revolving door when it matters. Charlotte is disciplined enough to stay steady. It'll be a tight game, but I think that they scrape it out.
This is where it does get really tempting to pick Charlotte because they have that focal point in Obregon. Like he is their go-to goal scorer, and you just always look for I'm probably repeating myself over and over, but it just like having that is so key in the playoffs when you're going to be pushing in these games where it is difficult to score. I think Madison, obviously, where they started in terms of like defensive performance and things like that was better than maybe how it played out across like the whole of their season. The thing that still gives me some hope for Madison is just how much they've spread out the production. So it does maybe suggest that there is like maybe more than one solution for them. Whereas like if you're Madison, you game plan against stopping Obregon and then just like hope for the best. Pack not being involved, obviously Charlotte's whole cup thing has been get to penalties and then Austin Pack will handle the rest. Like they won't have that option, it seems. So they will have to win it in regulation. And I don't know. Like, I think I'm going to go Madison just edging this one, and they get one of their varied choices up front to do the business in what I think is like going to be a 1-0, whichever way it finishes.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really tough one, and I think it was the toughest one for me to call within USO 1. I went back and forth on both sides. Charlotte, outside of their end of regular season victory that they had, has not really had the best of form here, whereas Madison had the opposite. Despite their end of season loss, they've had great form coming in. I do think John has a lot of credit here with saying that Charlotte is a team that has been built for the playoffs, and we've seen it before, whereas Madison, despite their time being in the league since 2019, is still looking for their first ever playoff victory. I want to say that they get it this season finally, but I will at least go out on a limb and say that the winner of this 3v6 game is probably not getting by Northern Colorado in the semifinals.
I think what Charlotte has won one away loss this season, 5 wins, 5 draws, and a loss on the road in the regular season. Like, I think that kind of shows that this is going to be pretty tight. It's probably going to go similar to, I see it kind of like what Phil said. It's going to be 0-0, 1-0. This is going to be like the most exciting, explosive game, but it might be a fun one to watch as far as, trying to be a tight matchup between the two. I'm leaning forward Madison just because I want to see them with the season they've had after being, senselessly or ceaselessly mocked for, more kits than wins. And finally they're starting to like build some momentum as a franchise. I would love to see them get a win at home here to kind of, I think, yeah, they're going to lose in the next round, but to have like a home win is going to be a nice kind of ending to the season for them to build some momentum.
I'm taking Madison. I just believe in what Madison does. Like Obregon is awesome. Like just absolutely awesome. He's had an incredible year. I don't know if it's gotten enough love. But when you're in these playoff situations, in these, winner go home situations, it really is death, taxes, Christian Chaney. He just always comes up big. And Shipman has really improved as a goalkeeper from last year to the point that I really trust him back there. And if it's Matt Levy back there, do you trust him as much as Austin Pack, as much as you would trust Shipman if it gets the penalties? I don't think so. I'm going for Madison. The 4s versus 5s. These are the ones that are the most contentious. These are the ones that everybody says it's always the road dogs that are going to take it because it's clearly the better team. Let's go ahead and start with the home team, though, in the West or in the East, in the 11, where they kind of come out in a 4-3 or 3-4-3 or a 4-4-2. Where they have Hunter Schultz, Benofemu, Aiden Stanley, Jack Blake, and Augie Williams. And then for Rhode Island, they have a 5-3-2 with Koke Vegas, Yao, Stephen Turnbull, Noah Fusan, and Albert Dikwa. And then for Las Vegas out west, we have Rocco Rosarena, Joe Hafferty, Sean Smart, Noah Valentin Noel, and Corey Bennett. Oops, all Greenville Triumph. Sacramento Republic, where you have Denny Vidiello, Jared Timmer, Jack Gurr, Justin Portillo, and Kieran Phillips. Let's look over at the East first because, spoiler, and I don't want to throw this out there too early if you want to do the Google form, it is a overwhelming majority of people of Rhode Island to win this matchup. Overwhelming. Do you agree?
Well, I mean, every year there's one of these games where people fixate on this lower seed that comes in hot and picks them to get the upset. Oftentimes that doesn't actually pan out. In this case, I'm going to fall for the trap because I really believe in Rhode Island FC. Frankly, I think that they might be the second most likely team that isn't Louisville City to go and win the Eastern Conference. Defensively, they're so solid. We don't give enough love to Yeo and Stoneman and Frank Nodarcy as a unit. They're unbelievable together. The midfield is lots of grinders who are never going to give up an easy pass, never going to leave a lane uncovered. Up top, the way that Noah Fuson has really blossomed into a superstar lately. Led the league with 10 assists. I think he got 8 goals on top of that. There's a real possibility that it's going to be him and JJ Williams up top and that Dikwa isn't even going to be in the lineup. And that would make a lot of sense. Now, going against Indy, a team that's been inconsistent ever since they crashed out of the Open Cup, it's hard for me to put aside the feelings of wanting this team to do well, frankly. It's been an exciting year. I just don't think that they have the consistent enough firepower. Like, you can maybe get an Augie Williams goal. There will be creation from Jack Blake and Aiden Quinn. The defense isn't as structured lately. There's just something that smells off with Indy in a way I can't quite put into words. So Rhode Island, given their form, feels like the pick.
Well, when you think about like Indy's output, Augie Williams, 10 goals, Jack Blake, 10 goals. 6 of Jack Blake's goals are from the penalty spot.
Yeah.
Like, so when you've got 10 goal, or 2 double-digit goal scorers, that feels really good. And when you take into consideration that Jack Blake, his numbers are a bit inflated when 6 of those are from the penalty spot, like that is pretty significant. And you're not going to be able to rely on stuff like penalties in these one-off games. It might happen, who knows? But in terms of output, I just think Rhode Island's attack is so varied. You mentioned Fuson. I think like he to me is just like the X factor in these sorts of games. I've talked about him most of the season. He's one of my favorite players, I think, out east. He just injects a little bit of chaos, and I think that is what Rhode Island will need, is just to move this Indy team around a little bit, get them out of shape, and they have the weapons to punish them. I really like Rhode Island in this game. I think Indy's just been so all over the place this year. I know they finished as a 4th seed. It is a credit to them, but they've just been so up and down. Whereas Rhode Island, I think, has been more of a story of slowly building from a foundation and like continuing to get better and better and better throughout the year. So maybe that's a vibes thing, but it does feel like Rhode Island has the edge in this one.
Yeah, I've went with Rhode Island on this one. If you just look at the comparison of the goal difference between these two teams, I mean, Rhode Island at +15, Indy 11 at -1. As per my UA ratings, Indy 11 is the lowest rated Eastern Conference playoff team for this season. I just think Rhode Island has even if it was against Miami, they still scored 8 goals in the last match, which has to be one hell of a confidence booster that you have coming into this game. And with just 2 defeats in their last 10, I feel like Rhode Island is riding that really high form here. So I've picked Rhode Island to advance, but I do think this will be a high scoring and really fun match.
I think this is what we were hoping Rhode Island would be at the beginning of the season, right? Like, I think a lot of people were really high on that team, looking at the players they brought in. And I'm picking Rhode Island just because I think we need more Koke Vegas in our life. And the longer he's in the playoffs, I think more people are happy. So I think I want to see Koke a little bit more. And yeah, Rhode Island.
Let's go ahead and go out west, where America's team, unless you're Sacramento, which is a very large portion of our fan base, there's the Lights. They are hosting Sacramento Republic, whom, not to mention some fun off the field stuff that they're dealing with. Kevin, please get off Twitter. It's for your own good. Vegas is hosting Sacramento after Sacramento kind of completely fell apart, or if we're being honest, never got out of second gear from the beginning of the season. I think this is going to be very, very interesting.
For me, by far, this is the matchup where I just don't have any idea how it's going to go. 2 teams that really have kind of lost the momentum at the end of the season. Las Vegas, as good as they've been all year, playing that 4-2-4, being so flexible with the way that they get Noel and Nagando involved. They've been mixing it up quite a bit at the back in terms of the center back pairings. They feel a little one note in possession. There was an interesting goal they scored against North Carolina in their final match where it came off a long ball from the back from Rico Rosarena. If they bring that level of variety and aren't just this route, or rather, if they have more than just that single way of building up, that's going to be promising against a Sacramento team that you're dead on, Kayla, saying like they started very well. They were undefeated through a month or two to begin the season. And since Roro went down, it's been a different club. With Jack Gurr out recently, like that's been the death knell for Sacramento. If Gurr doesn't play, this is easy lights for me. If he's in, it's a closer matchup. I'm ultimately going to say Las Vegas, but I just wish they were in a little bit better form coming into the postseason.
This is really so crazy because if you told me at the beginning of the season, hey, Vegas and Sacramento are going to play in the playoffs, I would say that then there must have been some kind of rule change where all of the teams make the playoffs, and Sac Republic is playing the 12th place Las Vegas Lights. Like that would be the only way that I would
Las
have
Vegas
envisioned
is
this.
hosting Sacramento. Like,
It's
that's
the
crazy.
craziest. It's the craziest thing. Yeah, and there's some sort of inverse rule of like the worst place team hosts the better place team. Anyways, I think like from where we've seen the heights of this Sac Republic team, what they are capable of, they could easily deal with Vegas, right? And this could be like a quite straightforward matchup. And they're fifth because we have seen that so infrequently this season. So yeah, it's just like this is a brutal matchup because everything about when I stare at this, I look at it on paper, I look at the teams, and you're just thinking like, I still don't really understand why the Sac Republic team finished fifth in this Western Conference. And it just hasn't been consistently good. Like you said, the impact of the injuries has been pretty significant on Sac Republic this year. That being said, the ceiling for the individuals in Sac Republic, it just really gives me the feeling that they could play spoiler here. And they are one decent stretch away from going and being consistently the best team, because they, in terms of the pieces they have in that roster, they just are simply one of the best teams in the West. They just have so inconsistently shown it. So I'm gonna put faith in Sacramento to spoil the party out in Vegas. But yeah, they've made it a lot harder on me than I ever would have imagined.
Yeah, this was arguably my toughest game to really try and pick of the USL Championship, just because I went back and forth on teams. And Phil, you're absolutely spot on that. Like from the start of the year, if you told me Las Vegas would be hosting a playoff game, I wouldn't have believed you. And like everything I'm seeing here is just that like Las Vegas should be the one who is favored. And it provides, honestly, if you're looking into wagering, a good chance that Sacramento will get favorable odds on this one. And I do think the winner of this matchup, especially if it goes through that Phoenix is the one beating New Mexico, the winner of this matchup immediately becomes a really trendy pick out of the Western Conference. I'm going to go with Las Vegas on this one, but I'm not anywhere confident to say a result beyond both teams to score.
Yeah, I think even with Phil's rule change, I'm still not sure El Paso makes the playoffs.
No, they'd have finished 13th somehow.
If that's the rule. But yeah, it is shocking to see Las Vegas, do as well and Sacramento do as poorly, which is wild. Like fifth place is still like, hey, we're in the playoffs, but for Sacramento, it feels like the end of days. Surprisingly, Vegas not super strong at home. Sacramento's away record is pretty good, but not great as of late. It's just like everything about this screams that this is just going to be absolute chaos. And so this is the game that I'm most excited to watch because it will be so unpredictable. I'm going to just say, just for poops and giggles and to keep the fun going, that Las Vegas is going to somehow pull this out and will be kind of a fun storyline. And will also show that, investing in a USL club can, change your fortunes. So spend money, owners.
Thank you, Jose Bautista. I forgot to do the season series. Indy won the season series, 1 win to 1 draw. First game was a 3-3 draw. Shocker, Rhode Island drew the game. Second game, Indy won 1-0. In the Las Vegas versus Sacramento, Vegas won the season series 2-0 with a positive 2-goal differential. Game 1 was a 1-0 win to Las Vegas. Game 2 was a 2-1 win for Las Vegas. Should be interesting to see how these shake out. This is going to be an interesting time. I think the way that we've been talking, this one feels like a layup, as much of a layup as you can get, of course. This one's going to penalties. And do you trust Danny Vitiello over Raiko Rosarena? Where Rosarena is not as experienced in these situations, but I think he's been the better goalkeeper down the stretch. How much does that play into a factor?
Well, they loaned in George Marks from Charlotte and benched a Rosarena, and then Marks just got recalled because like Crown Legacy needs a playoff goalie or something ridiculous like that. I think Dennis Sanchez maybe doesn't trust a Rosarena that much. Like he's the guy, but not their favorite version of the guy.
Sure.
Maybe he doesn't know that. Maybe he doesn't know that he's related to Randy Rosarena, and maybe that is a factoid that hasn't made its way to the coaching staff.
Is there a world where Jose Bautista hates the Rays so much that he's punishing Raiko?
I think so.
Yeah. Good.
I think more interesting would be seeing the Jose Bautista, Jose Canseco home run derby at halftime of this. That's the promotion that I need.
There we go.
Man, let's go ahead into our final 4 versus 5 is Greenville Triumph versus One Knox. We're going to talk about this, and I want to just kind of hop into it as soon as I get done reading about these two teams, where Greenville goes with the 4-1-4-1 with Gunther Rankenberg being the GK, Jamie Smith, Evan Lee, Chapa Herrera, and Liam McKinnon, Golden Boot winner. And then you have One Knox with a 3-4-3, much different team ever since McKeever got the sack with Johan Jarabe and goal, Jordan Skelton. You got Guali. In midfield, you have Callum Johnson and then Tequila as their forward. They had the season series go 1 win, 1 draw for Greenville +2 goal differential. The first game was a 2-0 win where Knoxville got 2 red cards. The second game was a 0-0 draw. But in the U.S. Open Cup, Greenville got a 3-1 win in extra time. Before we get into this match, I think this may influence the match. There's a fun announcement coming tomorrow for Greenville Triumph, and let's read between the lines. This is not any insider information, but it seems like there's a stadium on the way for the Triumph.
Yeah, I mean, great for them. I still think they're losing this game. Knoxville is a team that we just straight up have not given any love to this season. Like, we've talked about the coaching things, and that's it. They are so good defensively. When you've got Skelton Fernandez and Jalen Chrysler at the back and that center back grouping for them, they're impenetrable. You rightly shout out Sievert Hoagley in that midfield group for them. He's been unreal as a number 6, somebody who I thought was quite poor when he had a stretch with Phoenix Rising in the championship. And then One Knox converted him into this defensive midfield spot where he's been awesome. He feels like somebody who's designed to stay there in front of the back line and stop those cuts inside from McKinnon. Going the other way, it's a bit trickier with the One Knox attack. They tend to run pretty cold quite often. And again, like a good shout with the 5 there. Callum Johnson is somebody who's going to need to carry the ball out of the midfield and get that attack going. If he can get his touches and if they can isolate Greenville in the spaces between the lines, that feels like the formula for One Knox. So going that way.
Yeah, I think the question here is, can Greenville, obviously it's like sort of as Liam McKinnon goes, like Greenville goes, he is the scorer. And in terms of, assists and things, like Zakowski's really been the creative force for them, but beyond that, they haven't had as much production in terms of productivity, so it is kind of just like on McKinnon to figure it out. I think like the thing that gets me excited, I guess, about this one is I do believe in Greenville's ability to, like, they just score goals. And like, yes, it's McKinnon a lot of the time, and Knoxville's been very impressive defensively, and Greenville has turned a lot of these games, especially in cup situations, like into shootouts. And they often come out on top in that. So I think I am just giving Greenville the edge because of the firepower, but if Knoxville find a way to shut down McKinnon, then it does feel like it's going to be a long night for Greenville. But I am just about giving them the edge because of the goal scoring potential there.
Yeah, Phil, I think that's exactly how crucial it is. I mean, you're looking at a Greenville team who scored 17 goals in their past 6 games. I mean, outside of the odd shutout loss they had to Fuego, this team has been really catching form kind of down the stretch. However, I think the longer Knoxville can keep Greenville out of the back of the net, the better chance Knoxville will have in this match. If Greenville scores first, I think it'll be the try on Fugo through. But I'm also going to take Knoxville in this one just because I saw like all of my picks and I immediately went chalk with it. And in USL 1, there's always at least an upset within a team's first match played in the playoffs. I know we're kind of going into the top 8. We used to have buys, but there's always been an upset, and I just didn't feel comfortable enough not picking a lower seed to win. So I've gone with Knoxville in this one.
Yeah, Knoxville has allowed 6 goals in 11 away matches this season, which is just wild to me to think, like, not a home record, like on the road. And I think if you look at kind of just the way that they play throughout the season and the Jägermeister, where low scoring, forced PKs a lot, I think that's what you're going to get from Knoxville. And, you know, on the road, I think you can steal one with that kind of play. But I'm gonna, just for the sake of mixing it up, and I know these things count for points, I'm gonna pick the opposite way Ryan did on this one, just to make it interesting. So I'm gonna pick Greenville.
I'm gonna just hop in, Phil. I'm gonna push back on you a little bit with one of your old guys. Chapa Herrera has been what makes this team go. I'm gonna be honest. Like, he is really the engine in that midfield. The way he wins balls, the way he distributes, he's not gonna get the assist because he's always been the assist to the assist guy. And he distributes the ball so well, and he wins the ball so well that sometimes they miss the second pass. He gets the first one to a distributor, and sometimes the pass into McKinnon just isn't great. But I mean, if this team is going, it's Chapa, and he just has not gotten a lot of love. But I mean, really, if Chapa is going, this Greenville team just feels unstoppable to me.
I definitely don't need any second invitation to heap praise on Chapa. I think his availability, has been impacted a bit this season. Not a ton, but I think he's only made like 21 starts in the league or something like that. So I would say just like availability wise, he probably is lacking a little bit just in terms of impact. But that being said, like he is the sort of like press resistant midfielder that you need to be able to transition like well between phases of play, and is just like, he is a very, very high quality player who I think was, he was sort of viewed in El Paso sometimes as like a novelty because it was this local guy that got found in open tryouts, blah, blah, blah. Well, he is like a high quality player who definitely, like, for Greenville has added quite a bit of quality, but I think availability maybe just has held him back from having the season that maybe he could have. Kaylor's muted.
Every time.
Use the real mute button like a person.
That's because it just
thing.
tells me when I'm muted.
Yeah, the thing is that I don't like the clicking sound on my computer. I'm gonna be honest; it just really annoys me, and there's no way for me to change it. But that's all of round 1. That's every match of round 1. If you're sitting there thinking, "Is this going to be every single playoffs?" We are cutting down the playoff teams in half. Yes, we are going to do a little bit of recapping. You know, like, we will recap some matches, and we won't go as in depth because for a lot of you are learning about these teams for the first time. So it won't be exactly the same, but with this first round, it's a lot more explaining, which is why it's the longer ep.
At least it's not a best of 3.
If we ever pull that MLS BS, I will be so mad. Like, just give me 4 weeks of playoffs and let me have my off season, man.
Yeah. John is like, let me live.
Yeah, I'm so done.
I'm saying let me live, like I'm not immediately going to go start binging the Super League even more. Like I'm whatever.
Super League quietly like ends at the same time. It actually, the seasons overlap a ton, which is, I mean, neither here nor there. An interesting decision.
Sure. Do we have any final USL thoughts for the night? Anything. It could be playoff, it could be non-playoff, it could be whatever your heart desires. Anything on the night.
I really wish Loudon made the playoffs. I love those guys.
I was really sad.
We deserved Ryan Martin versus Ben in terms of just cursed outfits versus the sideline drip.
Comment in the chat. What was my reactions to the 5-0 win against Oakland? Nothing matters. Nothing matters whatsoever.
See, it's freeing. It's freeing once you accept that. Like, I really love El Paso's approach to their final game of the season, which was to not even acknowledge that it was going on. They did not live tweet the game, which is crazy. Like, that's so crazy. The office was just closed. They were away in Pittsburgh and no one was home.
It's fine. It worked, didn't it? You didn't care.
I mean, I definitely felt nothing. I was happy for Edward Kizza when he opened the scoring, to be honest. Like, it was more beneficial to them than it was to us. Like, who am I to take anything away from them?
If El Paso doesn't acknowledge that the final game has been played, could they technically do their money in the bank cash in at the USL final?
Yes. All right. Any final USL thoughts? Anything? No. All right. How about just final thoughts for the night, Alan?
Spoiler alert: if you've been watching RuPaul's Drag Race, congratulations to Coco Montrese for winning the UK or the Global All Stars. That's a very inside baseball joke for Drag Race fans. But Alyssa Edwards obviously won. We just finished that up. Ink Masters just started back up again, so I'm hopping back into that shenanigans. And of course, British Baking Show this season has been absolutely delightful.
No.
Like, if you love characters,
I haven't seen the last 2 episodes. Please, no spoilers.
Oh, I haven't seen the most recent ones either, so I'm not going to spoil them. But just the human beings that they find are the most delightful human beings on the planet, and we usually watch on Sundays as just like a palate cleanser for the week. And so, if you're looking for that kind of, my week's been absolutely dog poop, British Baking Show is like the way to go, just to be like, oh, I love humanity again.
Ryan?
Yeah, so I was going to come in here and talk about, near my apartment complex, they've been building a new cheesesteak restaurant for like the past 5 months, and I've had to walk by every day to and from this place, just like looking in and seeing their progress on building it. And I was going to be so excited that they were going to do their opening this Saturday, just so I could like have another nearby restaurant because I like cheesesteaks, but it was actually going to be next Saturday when they officially open it. So I have another week of waiting. So I guess my last thing is, this is your last week for early voting for most states. It ends on Saturday. So go do that if you haven't.
Cheesesteaks and vote.
Put the votes in and get the cheesesteaks out. That's what we want.
Bill?
Yeah, that's, I mean, definitely please vote. And I guess in terms of stuff I've been watching, just lots of sports. I will say I was really initially bummed by the prospect of a Dodgers-Yankees World Series because it was like, this is the most boring possible outcome. and then I watched game 1 and was like, this is amazing. I don't know why I didn't want this. Just like total heavyweight bout. I'm hoping, like, I am fully in the camp of rooting for games. Like, I'm just rooting for 7 games. I don't care what happens. I'm just rooting for 7 games. The Freddie Freeman walk-off, like I was watching with my sister and my brother-in-law, and it was just like the Freddie Freeman walk-off grand slam in game 1 was like just one of those sports moments with no rooting interest on either side, where it was just like we were like exclaiming in their living room at, you know, whatever, like 11 p.m. Central Time. So anyways, yeah, I've just been enjoying watching that and trying to keep my mind off of, you know, the existential dread that I'm feeling.
Did you see the fan interference from tonight's game 4?
God, no. So, I definitely saw the fan interference from game 1, but yeah.
So tonight's one, it was Mookie Betts was chasing down a foul ball in right field territory, and he stuck his glove into the stands and was able to catch it. But there were 2 Yankees fans in the stands who grabbed his arm and like opened up his glove and threw the ball out, trying to say like that was somehow like going to negate the out.
Like,
yeah,
it's
the nah, you didn't catch this rule. It's really
it's stood the test of time in sandlots across the country.
John?
Yeah, I've been on the horror movie thing just because 'tis the season. I just watched the 1935 Bride of Frankenstein, which is an absolute banger of a movie. There are sometimes you watch something like that and the visual effects and all of that are just so bad that it takes you out of it. You see this thing and you're shocked at how good it looks and at how resonant the themes are. So if you have Peacock, which you probably do for Premier League or for Super League or whatever, go check out the 1935 version of The Bride of Frankenstein.
I kind of mentioned to the guys pre-show. I got stuck on the way home from something, and basically I teach in a very small town. The census was exactly 1,000 people in the town, very small. And I got stuck on the way home, and Phil said he had a guess on what it could be.
Is it a marriage proposal?
No, it was not. No. No, there was no marriage proposal in the middle of the road. For reference, there's only one road in, one road out for me to get home.
It was the remnants of the Vanderbilt parade for when they beat Alabama. There's just a few people still going.
They walked really far.
Yeah.
Or was it Tennessee doing that?
Again, walked very far. No, the road was shut down for the first annual pumpkin rolling competition.
Yes, that is so good.
Wow. First annual is really that's a bold
heavy lift,
because they're implying that there will be more. That this will be a successful enough event that we have to repeat it.
Kayla, did you win?
I did not enter because I was a bit confused. I had to buy a pumpkin for $1 in order to roll it. And then I was asking about the rules. It turns out I had to stay there the entire time for the pumpkin rolling, because if your pumpkin gets damaged at all, and by damaged, it could be, damage from the roll, hitting another pumpkin, or ran over. They told me that being run over was a possibility for my pumpkin, that I was disqualified and I would have to buy another pumpkin. So
wait, so you're rolling this pumpkin and there's cross traffic? Like there's cross traffic?
Yeah.
Still going? That's amazing.
Yeah. Red light and you go.
What's the liability? Because like, what if my pumpkin hops up and like cracks someone's bumper or something?
I mean, I don't know. They should
calling my insurance company like, yeah, rogue pumpkin like rolled out of nowhere.
Everyone knew about the first annual pumpkin rolling contest, so I think that's on them.
It's like the Purge. Like you got to stay in on pumpkin rolling night, like stay in your safe house.
It's so funny because I found out about it today. there were probably 100, 200 people there, which again, that is 10, 20% of the population of this town. They said this was happening last Thursday. They came up with this last Thursday, basically sent out a Facebook post that we're rolling pumpkins for $1. And like 20% of the town population came out and started rolling pumpkins.
Are you sure it's not like your students who started this? Like, this genuinely seems
No,
like something that
these
like
were-
kids came up with.
No, these were like, I was easily the youngest person in attendance for the pumpkin rolling contest.
It's the retirement home, folks. They're so bored. They decided we're taking over the street.
Or like Ryan Healy in the chat saying that this is like a pumpkin scheme. I think like, yeah. Do you have a local pumpkin farmer who needed to drive up demand and was like, I'm gonna basically charge just to get rid of my excess pumpkins, and then I can charge more for the whatever I have left?
There's definitely a world where this was one person had so many pumpkins, wasn't selling them, and said, I will sell them to you for $1 in the most fun way possible.
Love it.
Love it.
And it's the first annual. So I can go back next year and do it all over again.
Yeah,
Remember the day,
around.
October 29th, pumpkin rolling day. Never forget.
Never forget.
What a show. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all to everyone who supports us. Cannot wait to see what this week brings us in terms of playoffs and all the craziness that's going to be. We will see you guys next week, same time, same place, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Check it out. Like, subscribe. See you next week. Until next time, here's Alan's voice.
Thank you for watching another episode of the USL Show.
The USL Show is now proudly part of the Protagonist podcast family. Please go to protagonistsoccer.com to check out more work. Thanks for stopping by. We'll see everyone again next time.